A lot of stuff going on. So finally, Christian, I'm glad you were able to join us after we're an hour late here.
Yeah, no problem, guys. You know what? After getting kidnapped to Trader Joe's, it's happy to see some freedom and some light here.
Right. That's right. To anyone listening, just to kind of give you some context, we're kind of going unscripted, unedited on this podcast because we have a lot happening and a lot of good stuff to talk about. So it is Friday night. It's about 9:30. We were supposed to record at 8 o'clock, but we had some problems from one of our members of this wonderful trio of ours.
Jeez, Dobbs, get it together.
So obviously the big news today, Trump diagnosed with corona. Yeah, big news.
Yeah, that is big news. A lot of people happy, a lot of people sad. You kind of can tell some true colors of certain people, whether it's personal or mainstream media folk.
Right.
It is interesting to see what people write. And to give context, when last week or 2 weeks ago now, with Ruth Bader dying, you don't see a lot of members from the right saying things. Oh, this is karma or good, about happy, things like that. Like it didn't really act like that. At least I didn't see that.
Well, I think that with society and media, all of that, they're just looking for whoever the person is, whether it be Trump, Biden, whoever it is. If they don't agree with what that person stands for, what that person believes in, then they're going to try to spin it into a negative, right?
Yeah, but you don't want to wish ill on people. Like I think a lot of people on the right would do the same thing Biden's doing. Like Biden took down his negative ads against Trump. He's not playing them right now. I don't know if you guys heard that.
I saw that.
So,
and then Trump said Trump said he's not taking his down though. He's still doing his.
I didn't hear that.
I read that same article, and then at the bottom it said Trump is still producing his.
Well, Trump should reconsider putting negative ads against Biden because that's a class act from Biden, in my opinion. I mean, and to the tweet out, we hope for a speedy recovery, and he got a lot. Even Rachel Maddow said it too. I don't know if you tweet.
I mean, it shows the human side. They're like we're all humans. I think deep down we do want to make sure everyone's okay. We know this pandemic can affect everyone in some type of way, and even though we may have different views on how this pandemic is being handled. And the politics that are going on right now, as humans, I think deep down we want to make sure everyone's okay.
Right. Nobody wants people to perish from it.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think, like you said, the humanity is starting to come out. And you're starting to see, like you said, true people's colors. Who's actually saying, hey, like, I don't agree with you, but I hope you get better. Because obviously you never want your president to be sick or to be ill or, God forbid, die of an illness, right? Like, this is not something you should ever want or merit. But in the same token, you're also seeing those that minority of people who are like, good, I'm glad, this and that. Right. And I've seen some of that as well.
Or they get sarcastic with it of it's just a hoax or karma at its finest. And it's, you're totally taking out of context what people are saying about the virus and things like that. But so good luck to him, man. I told someone else too, I wonder what that suite in that hospital looks like.
Oh, for sure. Oh, it's a mansion. You know what I mean?
I mean, like, honestly, I wonder what's in there because apparently it's fully functional for him to do his daily duties.
Yeah, I mean, it's a remote office. It's probably no different than getting on Air Force One. It's just a remote office for him. Or going to Camp David.
Right.
They have mobile offices like that. So.
I'm sure he just probably has a nurse coming in, checking temp, doing all that jazz as he's going about his day.
Just because, if this was a general populace member, they wouldn't be at the hospital right now.
100%.
They wouldn't take on Wall Street. No.
Right, but to be credited, I think any congressman or higher level government official would get the same. Well, they wouldn't get the same treatment as the president, but they would get.
They get
higher standard. You would get more. Rightfully so. I mean, these people are elected and very important, and us, lower level people. Don't
they're elected.
We don't get president.
They're elected to make the hard decisions and decisions that people like us don't want to make deep down. We may have our opinions on a decision or But that's why they need the best team around them to make sure they can get through this. They're okay.
Do you guys know if Pence has taken over any duties yet? Because I heard somewhere that Trump may sign off or talked about it. I don't know.
So there's no actual quote. Been keeping up with this. There's no actual quote of Trump saying that he would relieve power to Pence if he gets sicker, I should say. But I know today they had a meeting with the governors around 12:30. Pence did run that meeting.
Yeah.
And there were also there was a rally and something else that was scheduled today, but they had already canceled that before all this, so that wasn't anything. But he did release a video, Trump did, and stating that he's good. Thank you for the thoughts and prayers. I am headed to the hospital, but this is just a precautionary measure by the staff, the scientists, the doctors that I have, and I mean it makes sense. He's
makes perfect sense.
He's not spreading anyone. We need him to still be the leader of our country, whether you believe in him or not. We still got to have that leader, because even if it passed to Mike Pence, we don't know how Pence. We don't know how Pence is as a leader.
Right.
Exactly.
It is such a weird time with 2020 being so awkward as it is. 45 days out, you got a Supreme Court justice died, and now you have a Trump. Then you have a president 30 days from the election sitting in a hospital bed. Like, I don't think any civics class prepares you for what happens next.
And being a history teacher myself, like seeing this, I couldn't imagine teaching right now and being like, "Yeah, I've got to answer, right? Like I can't tell you what's about to happen next."
I have no idea. I really don't, because I assume if Trump gets some type puts on an event, I assume you need Speaker of the House or the House and Senate or the Supreme Court say, okay, Pence, you take over.
Well, the president writes a letter to the Speaker of the House and the pro tempore. I think that's how you say it, pro tempore. I think.
Yeah, pro tempore.
Sounds right.
He writes a letter to both of them relinquishing the leadership role to the vice president, and then they send another letter when he's healthy and ready to go to get it back. If Pence gets sick and cannot operate, it goes to Nancy Pelosi. It goes to the Speaker of the House. So it's it could get interesting. I don't foresee it.
I don't foresee it getting to that, especially knowing that right now Pence is tested negative today.
Oh yeah,
Biden tested negative. So
yeah.
I mean, and when you really look at the numbers, Trump's older. He's overweight. He still has a 95%, 96% chance of surviving this thing. And as president, you can probably bump that up a couple points because he's got access to everything.
You can definitely bump it up to like 99.9999, right? Like, let's be honest.
Right.
So,
but God bless. Good luck to him, man. I hope
for sure.
I hope this is a few days of rest and
good to go after.
Tying into we had a debate earlier this week. His aide was there.
Debate.
Yeah, the debate. Yeah, we're all doing quotes because it was kind of a crap show, if you will. But his aide was there and around the Biden camp, so it's just really interesting that Trump came out, but also Trump was in Atlanta a week to the day today, and we're one of the biggest hotbeds for positive tests. So it's possible that he got it from here somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's around so many people for so often.
He is.
I mean,
he is. That's true too.
So hard to trace it, but
but you could definitely tell he wasn't sick in that debate. I mean, just the amount
he came out fire.
He came out firing, and I think that Biden and him, if they wouldn't have interrupted each other, the debate would have been a lot better. I think it would have been.
For sure.
I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, it was just more bickering back and forth. There were a couple of good points by each side, I think.
For sure.
One thing I noticed too was you could easily tell who was the politician and who was Trump.
The businessman.
But Biden comes out on the stage. He takes a few steps out, looks out. He opens his hands, looking at Trump. Fist pumping. All right, let's go. The typical. He's smiling, and Trump's just like, bring it.
Yeah,
you know?
Trump just shows up and goes, "What's up, dude? Let's get this done."
Yeah,
like,
it's about time. I'm surprised you're awake at 9 o'clock tonight. I mean, that's kind of was, but God, that thing was annoying.
I'll tell you what, just being very bipartisan and in the middle, I was very disappointed in how Biden approached the debate, because obviously we knew Trump was going to have his zingers. Trump was going to interrupt. Nobody was surprised on how Trump acted during the debate, correct? Like, I think we could agree with that.
Well,
but
everyone with Hillary. Every debate he had with
exactly.
Hillary was the same way.
The only thing I can say is I think people didn't expect that much interruption from Trump.
Would agree. I would agree.
So, but yes.
But we knew. But my thing is very disappointing how Biden carried himself throughout it. It was you could tell Trump got on his skin really early, and that's when that bickering started. But my thing as a politician is somebody that you're saying you're better than X, right? You're better than him. Then he should have been able to show some maturity and been able to kind of wash it off and keep on point. Now, of course, that's a perfect world, but that would have been a platform that he could say, hey, he's coming at me, but look at how I'm handling it. Does that make sense?
You're exactly right. If Biden could have let it go and just rolled off the shoulder, he could have left looking
a lot better.
I said, but when he succumbed to the same name-calling and stuff that Trump did, now granted, Biden either doesn't know what to say or is not as quick and witty as Trump.
Responses, yeah,
exactly.
But he's still interrupted.
You could see that one's a politician, one's a businessman. Because if you're a businessman, I mean, you are just a savage, pretty much. If you want to put it in a term for today, you're a savage at everything if you're going to be successful. And as a politician, you're all, shaking hands and kissing babies. You know,
exactly.
You're putting on that smile. You're just, you're
shaking babies, kissing hands.
Off. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Do you guys pick up on this? Yeah. I noticed this early on too, with Biden particularly. When he would look at the camera, you could tell he was speaking his pre-rehearsed answers for the variety of topics.
Right.
Did you kind of get that vibe too?
He was more confident when he spoke into the camera. Right. And he really started using his hand gestures and doing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think those were just like his pre-rehearsed, pre-recorded. This is what I say about topic I explained. Right. And when he was done with those answers, he was looking around. He was scatterbrained. He didn't know kind of what to say.
But Trump was attacking him a lot of times, though. After his scripted answers, he would come back firing real quick.
And it's not crazy. Every politician has scripted answers to the things that they're going to be asked. So it's
Trump doesn't.
Trump doesn't. But when's Trump ever scripted, though? Right? Let's be honest. But for politicians, they all say, all right, what's your platform, right? We'll get to platforms later, but this is my platform answer. They all have that. So it's not like he did anything necessarily wrong having those scripted, answers or scripted monologues. But I do understand what you're saying is the fact that immediately when he's done with that, Trump's attacking him, right? Interrupting him, and there's not a huge fire back. There's not a huge stopping that because Trump's so different that you don't necessarily have that at political debates, and if you do, it's a lot more civilized. I guess you could agree with that. And
they got 5 years now, through Trump, the campaign, and now of him talking. Someone's got to prepare these Democrats to go against him.
I agree.
And you know the one person that I think that would have the best shot is his running
Sanders.
mate. No, it's his running mate.
You think Kamala? Oh, I bet you Bernie could run him. I bet you any money Bernie Sanders could run
Harris,
Trump.
Just from watching the when Kavanaugh, I think that's how you say his last name, Supreme Court Justice.
Yeah, Kavanaugh. Yeah.
During that Senate hearing, she was just no filter, just came at this guy with everything she had, and I think she has a big personality like Trump. Not obviously not as big as Trump, because I don't know anybody that could be bigger than
That's
him,
fair.
Personality wise. But I honestly think that if you put Harris and Trump up there, she would give it right back to him, 100%.
I think she definitely would. I think she has enough attitude and grit about her to be like, say what you want, but know that you're getting it back, And I think that definitely would happen.
And that's how it should. They need to. I really think Bernie could do it.
I think Bernie could. I think. Well, I see what Kip's saying. I think Bernie could if he prepared himself before it. I don't think. Right. Whatever. I don't think Bernie could if it was just in the sidewalk conversation, elevator pitch type situation. Probably not. Right. But I think if you mentally prepared for it, yeah, I could see that.
We'll go back to Bernie in the primaries and all those debates. He held his own really, really well against anybody that came out to attack him. In the front orders were Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala, Biden. Like those four kind of clumped together. Elizabeth Warren did a pretty good job.
She did too,
defending herself too.
Definitely.
But someone needs to take they need to take the playbook of debating for Democrats out and just say, match his energy.
I don't think it's going to matter, to be honest.
No,
in this election,
because you're right. Because I'm not wanting to steal your words, but
yeah.
You got 90 to 95% of the population know who they're already going to vote for, and it's not going to matter what one candidate says or the other unless it's a dramatic event.
Right.
So you're working on 5% of the people who are kind of midline trying to figure out what to do.
And going off that, in this debate, it was interesting to see there was a couple things on each side that the candidate said that I think either you gained or lost supporters. And let's take Trump, for instance. When he talked about his taxes, everyone knows his taxes got released. He paid $750 over 2 years, something like that. Well, he has a really good accountant, obviously, right?
Obviously.
And he came out, and when they questioned him, when Wallace questioned him about that, he said, "Who wants to pay taxes?"
Right.
And to me, he got the libertarian. He had to get some more libertarian supporters through that statement.
Right, or saying that I was smart for doing so.
Right, exactly.
Something like that, yes.
Taxation is stuff. Nobody wants to pay taxes, ever.
No.
Right.
But then, conversely, on Biden, some of the things he said, I was surprised. And the biggest one to me was he doesn't support defunding the police.
I got a different one too.
That was to me that there was a couple of them, but that was the biggest one that stuck in my head. I'm like, you're saying you're not supporting defund the police when the majority of the Democratic Party supports that.
Which is more interesting because previous to that, he said, Chris Wallace was asking him something, blah, 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 and he said, I am the Democratic Party.
Yes.
Right. And Trump even said, you just lost to the left.
Yes.
Trump right away, too. Yeah. And I think I made this point to you guys maybe when we were just talking on Xbox or something, where if you're a Democrat, you got to make a decision. Do I think Biden is a more moderate, centered Democrat like Obama, like that, or has he shifted to the more of the far left of the AOC, of the Ilhan Omar's, of the Bernie Sanders campaign? Now, personally, I don't think he is. I think he is more midline. He is more the Nancy Pelosi, the Chuck Schumers, the Joe Bidens, the classic Democrats you think. But so, what are you going to do if you are more on the progressive side? If you're more on the left side, what are you going to do?
I mean, you have to. I mean, he definitely. I mean, he was with Obama for 8 years, right? So he learned a lot from him. So obviously, his thought process politically has got to stem from his tenure with Obama, right? Has to.
And he's been in office for 45 years. So, and I think he has I think he's got a pretty consistent track record of kind of lined up with the same ideologies, possibly.
Doing nothing but signing the crime bill law, but never mind.
But as Trump famously said,
right.
I've done more in 47 months than you've done in 47 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
that was a good line.
That was a good line. Well, I think, too, the thing is what we're seeing is Trump is going to be what Trump wants to be, correct? He's going to stand for what he wants to stand for. And his platform's his platform. He's a Republican. If you're a Republican, that's what it is. There's not a real whole debate on the Republican side, left or right. Of course, naturally, there are some extremists. There are some far right. But we see in the Democratic Party, there is a split. There is that division that we're talking about.
There is.
There's that very, AOC, all that side. And then there's, the Joe Bidens. Excuse me. But what ends up happening is – thank you. I feel terrible now. You lost my train of thought. I can edit this out. I hate you. But so, anyways, 1, 2, 3, go. What we have is a person who his running mate Harris, I think she's more of the AOC side, right? I think she's more
for sure
of the far left. I think that's where he's going to continue that support, regardless of what he says, is because obviously she's going to bring that in with him for him to win that.
That's
vote.
A good point. That's a good
that
point.
Is a good point. And I'm really interested to see the debate next week between Pence and Harris, because Pence can hold his own too. You know, he's a different type of conservative. He's very Christian based.
I think.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think Pence is more right than Trump.
No, he is. That's what I'm saying.
100%.
Like he's 100% more right than Trump, and Harris is more left than Biden. So I think they're going to hold their own. When I first realized they're going to debate, I was actually kind of a little worried for Pence. I'm like, I don't know. She's like I said earlier. I mean, she plays dirty.
Man. She's good.
She plays dirty. She's good.
Straight up.
She comes up with facts.
She's good.
They may not be true facts. They may be true facts. Who knows?
But she hits you with them.
But in the heat of the debate, she's right on top.
She's pounding you. So we'll see. I'm really interested to see that debate.
It'd be it. What I found the most fascinating thing I found with Biden, was when Wallace straight up asked him if he supports the Green New Deal, and he said no.
Yeah. That was a huge thing.
That shocked the hell out of me. I'm like,
same.
You just you blew somebody's brain up, because people think you are all for the Green New Deal. And he tried, coming around the answer and things like that.
He did. He tried to say, well, the Green New Deal is this, but yeah.
Right, but I mean that's a really big deal in terms of how we're going to go in terms of climate change and things like that.
He called it the Biden deal, right? He said
he's got his own
Biden bill or something. Yeah.
But everyone knows, and in common knowledge, the Green New Deal is like what AOC put out in her first year of office. What was that last year? So to come out and say, and Trump rightfully said, you just lost the far left.
Yeah.
That's got to make some people alarmed. But for me, someone who doesn't necessarily support Biden, if he were to get into office, knowing that he doesn't support the Green New Deal makes me feel a little bit better. Whether he follows through or not, I don't know. But to know that he's not going to take this extreme look at restructuring the entire United States, makes me feel a little bit better if he gets office.
Well, the thing is, when the Green New Deal came out, I mean, there were a lot of people in the Democratic Party that did not support it because of how much it cost.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure even Schumer and Pelosi kind of shot it down and was like, I don't know how we could budget this.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And they've modified it since then some, and I guess they modified it to where they were happy with it. But that was the other thing I was alluding to, is one of the couple of things I noticed about the debate with Biden was the Green New Deal as well, that he doesn't support it. So.
Yes. And like y'all said, that blew my mind as well when I heard that going back to, he said, I'm the Democratic Party. That is me.
Yeah.
We all identify, well, that's a Green New Deal. When it comes to, global warming, the climate, that's what it is. The Green New Deal, Democratic Party. So when he says, I don't support that, I'm sure Trump was probably a little, you just lost the left, like you said, Kip. That's what he said. It was like,
right.
Honestly, you may have. I don't know if Kamala Harris can come help you out if you're just 100% against it. Now, obviously, what he says behind closed doors or whatever is neither here or there, right? But
that's a bold statement to make on a public platform. Where
I would agree.
This was probably one of the. I don't know the actual statistics, but it's probably one of the debates that was viewed the most.
No, I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today. It got abysmal ratings. This debate, it was significantly worse than Trump versus Hillary.
Interesting.
On their first one.
Now, you think it's because of Trump in it or Biden in it, or just because no one wanted to hear two old men bickering?
I think it's because everyone knows whoever they're voting for.
That too.
That makes sense.
I think that's what it is. When you had Trump versus Hillary, there was no incumbent. You had Hillary that a lot of people did not like, who has been from the political platform. Her husband was Secretary of Defense or Secretary of State. Her husband was president. And you had this new real estate mogul, this new guy coming in, and I think a lot more people were interested in those two personalities and how they're going to clash. jump 4 years ahead. If you supported Trump in 2016, you support him now. There's going to be very few people.
There's no way he's lost people. There's no way.
If he has the same amount of number of people he lost, he also gained from people who don't like the left. So I think his net is 0. And if you are for Biden, whether because you hate Trump or you like Biden's policies, it's the same. I think that's why the debate was meaningless for a lot of people. I will be curious, like when you brought up earlier about with Pence and Kamala. Like I wonder if that's going to be because a lot of people assume or think it's very likely that Kamala gets president at some point, or is kind of taking that fake leading role behind Biden. You know, Biden's just a showman; he's the speaker, but Kamala's kind of running the show. So I'm very curious with the vice president debate.
Yeah, and I've seen, you know, kind of funny memes, and this guy, instead of Biden Harris, is Harris Biden is what it actually should be. At all. So I mean, I think if Biden were to win the election, I do think it's going to be difficult for him in the first place to win this election. But if he does, but I think if he does, I would not be surprised if within the first 100 days, maybe 6 months, that he's deemed unfit to run the country as president. I
don't think anybody would be surprised, really.
No.
Right. And so maybe that's why they picked such a strong, outspoken, big personality vice president nominee.
I find it curious you said they. How many people do you think Biden chose Harris versus how many do you think the DNC chose Harris?
The DNC 100% chose Harris.
Oh, the DNC.
There's no way you can argue that they did not. Biden didn't choose his running mate.
Who do you think Biden should have picked? Do you think he should have picked any of them? Like, if you were Biden, who would you picked?
If I would have picked,
I probably Warren.
I could see that.
But Warren said she didn't want to be it though. But
exactly. Oh shit! I didn't hear that.
Yep, she did.
What about you, Christian?
If Michelle Obama was ever gonna become in politics and she agreed to it, I think she should have been his running mate.
See, that would have probably been the perfect choice because I was going to say he should have went off someone outside of the primary, someone who wasn't a candidate. That's what Trump did with Pence. Pence never ran for president, and he totally went off. So that would have been if he picked Michelle Obama. Oh my God, that would have been a hard ticket to beat for Trump.
And I think it would have been a lot stronger ticket than Kamala Harris. Now I think Kamala Harris is a lot better politician than Michelle Obama would have been, but just ticket wise, I believe that, and that's my thing. I very much thought Biden for a while before Michelle Obama came out, or before I researched that Michelle Obama didn't want anything to do with politics. I very much thought that was going to be the choice. Because of that strong ticket. No one's going to complain about Michelle Obama being the vice president. First woman, her husband was president. There's a lot of history and a lot of things going on with that, you know?
Do you think that would have set well with Hillary?
No, I don't think it would have been.
Let's assume it's a Michelle Obama ticket. They win. Michelle becomes vice president. Do you think Hillary would have been pleased?
Not at all. Honestly, not at all.
Because she's been hammering to be the first woman.
I think she would have because, I mean, my personal view, and I know we're trying to keep bias out of this, but I think Hillary is a bit of a puppet master, if you will, of the Democratic Party. Really? And so with that, I think she wouldn't actually mind because she could spin it, policies, whatever you want to call it, she could spin it her way, how she likes or what she thinks is best. That's just a crazy theory for me.
You think,
that I think, but
Bill Clinton is the husband of the first lady. I mean,
that would be that's gonna be interesting because I do believe we have a future female or woman president. And I think it's gonna be soon.
I think it'll be in the next two elections. Not this one, of course, but I think the next two elections, I can very much see that.
My only thing is I'm trying to think of somebody on the Republican ticket that could be.
See, that's tough. I don't have any names that come right to head. Granted, I have it.
Candace Owens.
I could see that. I could very much see that.
She may not have anything wanting to do in politics, but or how about that girl in Baltimore, that Kim Kim Clack or Kim Klacik or Kim something.
She's not going to run for president.
She's still fresh,
yet.
but you're right. In terms of mainstream people that you hear, there really isn't a lot of Republican women out there.
I mean, I would go as far as to say Ivanka Trump would even be thrown into that realm.
So, what do you guys? Okay, so I've had this thought for a while.
Okay.
What do you guys think of a potential amendment to disallow family members and vice presidents from becoming president? Example, Biden in this case. Since he was vice president, he should not be allowed to run for president. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Bush Sr., Bush Jr., and Jeb Bush ran for president in the primary too. I think because essentially you went through Bill Clinton, George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., and then Obama, and then potentially Hillary. I mean, that's 20 years of two families, quote unquote, three families running the world, running the country. I think that should be a conversation that needs to be had
but
in
why?
Congress.
Yeah. Are you talking about because it's to stop an oligarchy type situation? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, sure, but Bush Jr. and Bush Sr. probably have the same ideology. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton probably have close to the same ideology. So you're taking away the idea of having a president, someone who's different, someone who's new, and now you're, in a broad sense, having a double-termed president of the same. Like, could you say Bill and Hillary Clinton are very, very similar with how they think? Probably fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they could, it essentially would get 16 years total of control over the country.
Okay.
Of 45 presidents.
Well,
I mean that's a significant amount of time.
it is. Well, let me tell you this: the moment you start filtering or infringing on people's ability to become president, that's a very slippery slope. Because
it very much is, yeah.
So I don't think that's a bad conversation to have, but it's gonna be a tough one to even move the pendulum either way, because you can't tell people because your father or your mother was president, you can't be, because then you're taking someone's right away, because it is their right to have the ability to become president.
Because what all in the Constitution that says is you got to be over 35 years old and a natural born citizen. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have the same argument with like Donald Trump Jr. Like, I don't think any of Trump's kids should essentially be able to run. Because I don't like the idea of family ran presidencies.
But why is it an issue? Because if the country feels that they like, let's say, with Trump, they like how Trump's running the country, right? The majority of people like that. He may not win the popular vote because he probably won't win it this year again, but the Electoral College will put him in. So if we collectively like how he's running the country, and his son or his daughter, whoever, has the same viewpoints, is running their platform based off of their father's platform, what's wrong with the country wanting to keep it the way it is? And that's what they believe in at the time. So if you have George Bush, Senior and Junior, I mean, they liked how Bush Senior ran the country, obviously, enough to where it's like, oh, Junior's running now? Okay, cool.
But no, I understand that argument, but there's got to be people out there that are similar to Trump or similar to Biden or similar to Bill Clinton.
Well, do a debate.
Bill.
Get in, be a candidate for the nominee, and that's how they narrow it down.
Well, that's difficult now. That is difficult.
It's very difficult. I mean, you got to know people.
Because you have to know people, and you have to have money.
It's very easy for Donald Trump Jr. to get into a presidential election now that Dad was president.
I would agree.
But I just...
And that's his fault.
Why?
It's not.
It's not his fault. It's not his fault. He's taking advantage of a situation given to him.
Sure.
Which is fair.
I don't blame him for wanting to do it, but as a citizen of the country, like, okay, we're not an anarchy, I get it, but over in England, you've had the same family and frickin' royalty
But they're not running the country.
They're not running.
No,
They're a figurehead. They're not even.
Right.
They're not even in control at all.
Right, but you kind of know what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's take it away. Kim Jong-un in North Korea took over from Dad. All right.
Yeah.
That now obviously that's a communist country.
dictatorship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I understand that. All right. But okay, Putin in Russia. What if Putin Putin have kids? I don't even know if he has
No, I'm
kids.
sure
Does
he
have
does.
kids?
He actually does.
What if
He actually
Putin's-
does, but I think they're
Okay. So Putin leaves office and gives it to his kid. I think you're running down a dangerous game of allowing family run or vice president run to give, because 16 years over the course of 30 years, that's half the time.
I agree.
I mean, that could have significant impacts on how our country is ran into the future.
Well, it has. You
Yeah,
brought that up
it definitely
with
has.
Bush Senior, Bush Junior,
Right.
and all. I mean, it definitely has shaped our country.
I mean,
what?
imagine if Jeb Bush won the nomination, won presidency. Bush Senior, Bush Junior, and then Jeb Bush.
No offense to Jeb Bush, that probably would not have
But-
happened.
But at the time, the country feels like he would run the country the right way.
Well, are they thinking he's running the country the right way because they like George Bush Senior and not George Bush
It could
Jr.?
be both. If he's
It
running
could
on
be
the
both,
same
but it's not-
platform, what's the issue with that? That's and I like that we're having a spirited conversation about this, because like I'm not a big fan of keeping it in the family either, but I'm just arguing because if the country as a whole feels a certain way about a candidate, no matter if they're the sister, brother, son, cousin, doesn't matter, and they feel like they would run the country that well, they should be able to run, no problem.
They have the right, as it sits right now, to run to do it and run for presidency.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I really think we need to have a conversation as a country as a whole, because this has only been relevant since Bush Senior, Bush Senior, Bill Clinton, Bush Junior,
But
Obama,
I think
and then potentially Hillary Clinton. Tristan just brought up Michelle Obama. You brought up Ivanka. I brought up Donald Trump Jr. You're talking about 3-4 presidencies all within the same 4 or 5 families. I don't think that's a good thing.
Well, and I think Christian brought up a great point. Is it's a slippery slope. I think if you even start to have the conversation, you're going to get into you're going to open a can of worms. That's what I think.
And then in 20, 25 years, here comes Barron Trump running for presidency, playing on Grandpa's platform. I mean, you're running. I envision something in year 2050, 2060, 2070. What if we ended up having a situation at 3, 4, 5 different families just rotating every presidential?
Well, and I'll tell you this, Kip. It is our duty to go out and vote. If you feel that strongly about it, then either one of us need to step up and become a candidate, or we need to back somebody that we very much agree with to become that.
That's true.
I
You
think
vote your local representatives and senators, and then
You're right. I mean, that's how the democratic process should work, and that's how the system's run up now. But man, that's a tough challenge.
It is a tough challenge. And this is the thing. Democracy was built to be difficult. I mean, this is the thing. Democracy, freedom is never an easy thing to maintain or contain. And it is what?
Go ahead, finish your thought. I'm going to look something up while you're talking.
You're good. But what I'm saying is, I feel very strongly that even though the democratic process is not perfect in the slightest, we need to be proactive in protecting the democracy we do have. Now, I'm very happy. Now, do I agree with Kamala Harris a whole lot? Not necessarily. Am I super happy to see a strong woman come into politics and be a new face and be positive in some things? 100%. Because like Kip said, we need more people than just the 5 families. I agree with that. But I think, too, if we feel that strongly about those 3 or 4 families, we need to be active in not only our national politics, but in, like WD said, even our local politics and building people up. And if we truly believe in somebody, we need to build those people up to be that leader.
Well, how you take care of that is you break up the 2-party system. You break up the 2-party system. You open it up. You're not going to have families going again, or families rotating, like you said. There's no way.
What if they changed the debate rules and the president wants that you have to have 5 members running for president?
I would say if you had 3.
Or even at 3. Okay, let's say 3. The most common in our country is the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
Right now it's Joe Jorgensen. How different would that make our country going forward? If they mandated you had to have 3 members of different parties running on the debate
You
stage.
want me to be honest? It would change everything. Because I firmly believe if Joe Jorgensen was in the debate, she would win it. In that past debate,
she would win the debate because she wouldn't talk.
But will she win the election? That's who cares about the debate?
Right. But,
that's fair.
I mean, you're bringing up an awesome point because all of a sudden now you shift the Electoral College from winning 270 votes to winning 34%.
Yeah.
Right.
Of the 500. So what is that? 190 ish.
Sure, we'll go with that. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I mean, you're definitely. But does that also now change the impact of New York, California, Texas, and the importance of those states?
Yes, I mean it does. But and this
Absolutely.
is the thing. I think you say will she win the election? Probably not. But if we feel that strongly about having more than a 2-party system, we need to actively be voting for the people, or at least the party, that we want to break up the 2-party system, if that makes sense. Just because they may not win this time, if we, last election, we get, 10%. This election, we get 20%. And, those are high numbers. I know it's not that high. But you know what I'm saying? Sooner or later, you're going to get enough momentum to have a third-party president. Now,
so what happened back in the early 90s with Ross Perot and the Green Party?
Exactly.
He was the highest elected percentage-wise third-party candidate ever. So why didn't it build off of that then?
Well, because you have to have a strong candidate after that. You can't just have the highest, publicized person. You have to have another person or have him go again.
But let's take the Libertarian Party for, if that is going to be our third party, let's say that specific party.
That's fine.
Most Libertarians are in the same mindset. You don't really sway, just from what I've read and all. You don't. If you're a Libertarian, you all pretty much think the same. It's not like Republicans where you can have Tea Party to moderate to whatever, or Democrats you can have lefty all the way to moderate, if you will, I guess. But if you take Libertarian Party, it shouldn't matter about the candidate, because that party in particular, I think, is all the same mindset.
That's fair. But this is the thing, though. To win an election, it's not just that party. You have to get that, let's say, 5% in the middle and some more. So it don't matter. I mean, we can all vote for that person, but if they don't get the pendulum moving in one way or the other, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. So it does bring up, I mean, that would be a wild election night if you actually have 3 legitimate candidates powering for states. The next question, though, that now all of a sudden, do you look more like a parliament, like how England does it in Canada? Right. I definitely don't want to go to more of a parliament system. I like what we have.
I think to get to that point of a third party election and all that, you have to start setting term limits
for Congress.
For Congress, yeah,
100%.
Because if you do, because there's so many politicians in there that have been there for 40 plus years, 30 plus years,
I firmly believe that's unacceptable.
For sure. They're making $170,000 a year, and then they get the pension, they get all the benefits, they get everything. What do you think would be a good term limit for a senator?
2.
8 years.
I mean,
2?
No, not 2 years. No, that's too short.
Let's say this. Let's say 8, right? You get 2 years to get your feet in. You get 4 years to actually do some good, and then you get 2 years as your exit year. Can we agree to that? I think 8 years isn't bad.
So like a 2-term.
2 terms.
Like the presidency.
But it'd be one term, 8 years as 8-year terms.
Right.
1 year. 1 year. Yeah.
And
I think that will work.
And I think that's fair. And my thing is, I have no problem paying our senators, paying our House. I have no problem paying Congress to do the job. My problem is when you start making that profit more important than what you're actually voting for.
Oh, now you're going to go down a can of worms that nobody wants to talk
That's
about.
fair. That's fair.
If you want to build on that, any Congress and Senate, any congressman or senator cannot be or is ineligible, illegal, whatever you want to call it, to sit on a board of directors, become a president, vice president, whatever, of any corporation company. Because if you're going to sit here and you're going to lobby for a oil company in Texas, and then all of a sudden you become vice president of said company, bullshit. Get that idea out of your ass and get out of here.
Yeah. And I very much have seen, we've seen that in these years.
Take your damn pension. You made a senator. Congratulations to you. You got fun things to say on your resume. Play at the golf course. Get out of here.
And I think a lot more people now, I think that's come to light, especially term limits.
I spilled my drink over that excitement.
There it is. There it is. But we see a turn in America right now is with social media, with the internet being readily available, right? We're now coming into an age where people can access all of this from the age of what? 2, 3,
5.
When you 5, right? Yeah, 5, right? Dubs. To now where I think a lot more people, I want to say they're more informed. Now, they're more educated, maybe not necessarily, but they get a lot more information about politics.
More exposed.
No, I wouldn't even go that far. I wouldn't give people that much credit. They're exposed to headlines.
Yes.
They're exposed to clickbait.
But they're still exposed to that. When we were kids,
you weren't exposed to
the paper.
No.
That was the headlines back then.
The only time I picked up the paper was the sports, right? That was the only time you ever did anything like that.
Or the comics.
Right.
Or the obituaries if you're an old person.
That's fair.
No, but Chris was talking about kids, teenagers. There's the accessibility of information now is crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
extreme.
And like you said, you're just looking at headlines. Well, you scroll through your Facebook page any day, any time of day, you're going to see these big headlines pop out at you. This is 100%. Who you should vote for. This is why you shouldn't vote for that person. Mm-hmm. It's easy to sway people right now.
Freaking advertisements on YouTube.
Yeah, 100%.
Man, I circling back, I know we kind of put a tap out, but I wanted to bring this up with the whole familial, family-run presidencies.
Yeah.
We've had 45 presidents, right? There have only been 2 instances of a father-son presidency. George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., John Adams, John Quincy Adams.
Yeah.
So late 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And pretty modern.
So that obviously is not a big problem.
No.
And in terms of vice presidents, there have been 9 vice presidents that have ascended to the presidency, 8 due to a president's death, 1 due to a president's resignation. So not nearly as a problem. Mm-hmm. It's not as a problem. It's not a problem from what I portray, but boy, do I see it potentially.
It could be. Right. It could be. There's the potential for it. And I think it would be folly on us to not be ready or not be proactive for that.
It'd be a very interesting kind of. I would love to hear that debate between a couple people, like of real politicians, someone outside of us.
Right. You're not a politician.
I mean, because to do that, you would need a constitutional amendment. You would need the states to ratify it. You would need Supreme Courts involved. I mean, it'd be a big operation. It would be a big deal.
Oh, that's why term limits have never been passed, because the people who we're trying to give term limits to have to vote for the term limits. So
yeah.
Right. So I mean that.
And there are some candidates that have introduced term limits, but they're always
Ted Cruz has.
Ted Cruz.
Yeah, Ted Cruz. I think he's the most recent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's absolutely asinine.
I wouldn't mind him. I wouldn't mind him being president. But
I don't think he wants presidency.
He doesn't.
I don't think he wants to do it.
So.
He didn't want the Supreme Court justice nomination either.
I was really hoping Trump would throw a curveball and be like, "Mr. Cruz, please join my bench." Like,
I don't think he would. I really don't think he would accept it. Would he though? I don't know. I mean, it's a job for life.
If I'm offered that now, I'm saying yes. I mean,
Trump could offer it to me. I have no judicial experience, but I would take it
right
away. I'd be a horrible justice, but
I mean, you'd be most definitely entertaining.
What a gig, man! One of the 9 people in the country to get a job for life.
Yeah,
what a gig, man! What a gig! And what's the other fun thing of that is, you really get no heat.
No.
like Congress, like the House and the Senate get all the heat. The Supreme Court is just like, hi. They show up to the State of the Union addresses just, in their black robes, sit down, don't clap, give me a coffee, and we're on our way.
Well,
but
to me, they have the most power. I know it's a system of checks and balances. We all learned that. But I feel like the judicial part, they hold a lot of power because they interpret the Constitution, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're supposed to do.
That's what they're supposed to. That's a lot of power.
That's a ton of power, man.
Right.
To think, like, okay, I'm a Supreme Court justice in the year 2020 trying to interpret a document that was written back in the 1700s that's been in the basis and the core values of our country. That's awesome. Awesome. I mean, that would be...
Well, the Supreme Court over the years, they've shaped our country as well. I think they've shaped our country more than
early
Congress
on, for sure,
or a presidency. I really do.
Early on, and I was looking this up because, again, with the debates and everything, it's been 9 justices since the Supreme, not the Supreme Court, since the Civil War.
Mm.
And now you hear the tidbits of people about packing the courts and adding more justices, which I think is a horrible idea.
100%.
For whoever, whether the Democrats or because if the Democrats packed it, the Republicans are going to come back and pack it again. And now all of a sudden you're going to have 99 freaking justices trying to hear a court.
Yeah.
And it ain't going to matter. I think 9's a good number. 5-4 decisions, 6-3 decisions. I think that's a good solid number. But you can't go start changing stuff that's been standard for 100 years, 150 years.
Mm.
But I definitely think early on definitely shaped our future to now. If you can go from the Civil War to 2020 with very little changes in the Supreme Court, since the Supreme, why do I keep saying Supreme Court? Since the Civil War, I think the biggest changes to the Constitution would be the Civil Rights Acts in the 1960s.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment. That would be one of the top 2. I mean, they kind of just lay dormant for a long time because things ran right in the early stages, pre-Civil War, from Revolutionary to Civil War. We're still trying to figure this thing out.
You're still juggling, this and that. What do we do here?
Right, we and even early 1800s, you still had founding fathers alive. You still had people that built the country and their ideas and what they wanted and how they foresee the country and why Europe was a problem, why we need to run it this way, and why. I mean, that's a lot of early on decision making to set a country up. Mm-hmm. I mean, think of the magnitude of that. Like we're not just playing a little game here for the next 30 years. We're setting this thing up to last for eternity.
Yeah.
Which won't happen.
Okay. Get off your high horse, all right?
How's that high horse?
Okay, fine. We're going to have a East and West, country at one point in time. Whatever.
I mean, not anytime soon, hopefully, but yeah.
No, it's not going to end anytime soon. Maybe Canada will join us. We'll have a super country.
That would be
maybe Mexico too. We'll just be all one happy country.
I mean, we'd all be Americans. I mean, we're all Americans.
North Americans.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be pretty.
And with the man, it's just awesome. I was also reading up because there's been talk. I don't know if you guys heard of people wanting Washington D.C. and Puerto Rico becoming states.
Yeah, saw that.
Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I'm for it. I mean, they're already territories, so I mean, yeah. I think what would be difficult is for those in governing bodies in those countries to give up that power, right? Do that. I say difficult. I mean, they're already. I mean, again, they're territories, so maybe probably not. You would just have to find a place for those people in Washington D.C. I guess you could say.
Well, and that's the conundrum. If they become states, now you have to add senators. You have to add House of Representatives.
Right.
100 senators is a nice, easy number.
It is.
I mean that's pretty.
Well, what would you?
I think Puerto Rico has a better chance of becoming a state over Washington D.C.
Oh, I would agree.
Why not just let them be their own country?
Talking about Puerto Rico.
Well,
Yeah.
That's actually what I would prefer too.
I
have no idea how this works in terms of territories and districts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either.
I have no idea. Like with Guam, I don't know how Guam relates to us. I don't know.
Really, at the end of the day,
come on, history teacher, teach me, please.
Teach you. Really, at the end of the day, territories pretty much we govern. Pretty much in and outs, not necessarily day-to-day life, but kind of like big money policy and stuff. We have a say in that, and security. We're huge in their security and such. So obviously, if someone attacks Puerto Rico, that's like attacking us in a way. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And the same thing with like Washington D.C. being a district. The reason why Washington D.C. is a district, and I don't think Washington D.C. will ever become a state, is the problem when if you have the reason why it's a district is because all the power in the country is in that spot. Does that make sense? If you have all the power in a state, then that's an issue. That's why it's sectioned off as a district.
You're right. So I was reading up on this, preparing to go head to toe with you to see if we mattered.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I read early on, again, late 1700s, Congress did something, and at the time, Congress was part of Maryland, or D.C. was part of Maryland.
D.C. was part of Maryland.
Okay. The Commonwealth people got pissed off at Congress and like barricaded them in their doors and barricaded them in the building.
Yes.
Right. So Congress like, okay, we need to do something where we can govern ourselves and protect the capital. So they made the amendments or the rules of law saying we're going to make the capital of the country a district. Yes. It has no statehood. It has no right. It's just where it happens. And I also read it's supposed to be no bigger than like 10 square miles. I think that's the other thing I read too, or 2 miles or something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant, but it's kind of a fun note. So in like 1796 or 1790 Maryland gave up the land to Washington D.C. to become a state, to become a district.
A district, yes.
Okay. And then somewhere down the line, Maryland got that state back, got that land back.
Mm-hmm.
So for Washington D.C. to become a state, Maryland would have to approve them leaving because you cannot create a state unless the former state allows for the creation of the new state.
Which is actually very good when in governance, is because that's a check and balance in itself. Because if they were to do that, obviously, if they were to do that, they'd have to go to Maryland. Calling people Maryland be like, so that's a big no, right? I mean, everybody with some common sense, hey, the capital wants to be a state. Like, no, because then you have all the power there.
Right, you have all the federal agencies, the federal power, the federal ideas running a state.
Yes,
that's not good. That's not good. And that's just like people say, California would have to agree to make North and South California. Mm-hmm. I don't think that would ever happen. Texas would have to make a East and West Texas. That would never happen.
No.
And Virginia gave up West Virginia in the Civil War.
Yeah.
So that's funny. I can see Michigan wanting to give up the up. What? Okay, I'm not up the. I Wikipedia.
What do you want to go there?
I Wikipedia this stuff for 20 minutes while I was at work today, trying to figure out enough information. Michigan giving up the Upper Peninsula to become its own state. That would never happen.
No.
So the idea of becoming this new state from within the United States is far-fetched. I don't think that would ever happen. It would be easier for Guam and Puerto Rico and those other islands to become states over something that's already within.
I would agree. I was even pretty surprised. We lifted a bunch of the bans on Cuba with Obama. I was very surprised they didn't use that momentum to try to get statehood.
Well, there's been a lot of Democrats pioneering for statehood for these two for what, since like the late 90s? The Clinton era?
Yeah, there's been
it comes up
get the votes.
Right.
Oh, they would.
I think that's what it is. They're gambling on getting 2 more senators or a few more representatives from those 2 locations.
Yeah.
I think it should be like this, right? You remember back in the day when we were making countries, there was a slave state and a non-slave state, right?
Yeah.
I think you would very much have to approach it in a Republican or Democrat state, right? I don't think you could have And obviously, no state like Georgia's not like I'm a Republican state. We're Georgia, but obviously we vote red most of the time, right? That would be the issue. You could not have two states. Boom, we're all both Democrat, or boom, we're both Republican.
No, because all you would have is you would have Metro Atlanta become a state, everything else not a state.
Yeah.
Metro Detroit become a state, everything else is a state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you have just these little pockets of 30-mile radiuses of little Rhode Islands. You would have they'd be smaller than Rhode Island. You're right. Rhode Island's just that thing that hangs over right. So you would have this is pop, 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 all across the country of these big cities becoming states and.
And again, check and balances, right? Fantastic that we have them. So something that chaotic wouldn't happen, right? Because I think very much so, if someone found a way to, all right, well, let's get more senators here. We need that there. Cool. Atlanta, you're a country now, or you're a state.
Right. Right.
Right. Like there you go.
And I would like to go back in time in the early 50s and late 40s when they were talking about making Alaska and Hawaii a state.
Yeah.
Was that as big of a deal?
It was a huge deal. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so
it seems such a like I don't ever like. Okay, Alaska and Hawaii became states in 1952. I think it was correct.
Roughly, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. What the hell were they before then?
They were territories. I mean, they were territories. Well, initially, Alaska was Russia. I mean, Alaska was.
We bought Russia. We stole Russia. We stole Alaska from Russia. We paid it for pennies on a dollar for that.
Oh, 100%. And then good thing they didn't know oil was there back
hammered
then, right?
Russia.
Yeah.
That's just as bad as when Michigan traded Toledo for the Upper Peninsula. Get screwed, Ohio.
Oh, right. Oh, for sure.
I'll take the UP.
I saw this meme. It was like, all you need to know about Northerners is that Ohio hasn't taken back the Northern Peninsula yet. That's all you need to know.
That's right. That's our Upper Peninsula. Take your Toledo in that river and get the
right. Oh, dude, I love it. I would just like to be like Ohioan. I don't know how what do you call that, but just someone that just goes to the Upper Peninsula and just goes, boom, here's my flag. I own this now. Challenge me. You're right. Challenge me.
In the meantime. Yeah, you give up Toledo. In the meantime, you're finding copper all over the place in the Upper Peninsula. And the lumber. And it's like, oh, yeah, bring it in. You take your industrial city and we'll take it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and you think, the big changes in America are big changes because things that happen here, we see it. I've been to the Philippines. I've been to Central America. We are a global economy within a country, right? We're a global political system within a country, right? We are essentially touching the world with our influence. We're everybody sees what we do. Everybody judges what we do.
That's not an accident.
And it's not. No, not at all. I mean, it's definitely planned from the get-go. When you kick England out, you're like, surprise, Daddy's back, right? And then what's up? Come watch us and see how it's done.
Bring me some more tea from over there.
That's it. Back-to-back World War II champions. Wasn't a coincidence. Right. Surprise. But, yeah, all jokes aside, anything we do is most definitely maximized or has that influence everywhere. So when we're talking about bringing another state, that not only affects the populace of that territory or that district if we have it, but also it affects everything in the world because then our economy will start to switch a little, right? We'll have a little more of this, a little less of that, whatever that looks like. Now, obviously, we get some import-exports from our territories. So a lot of things on paper may not, or a lot of things in motion won't be changed, but a lot of things on paper would be, right? They'd be a lot more logistics or a lot less logistics, depending on what that looks like. But just from a global mindset, it's a really big responsibility for us being a superpower to make those big changes. So I think that... Well, so go ahead.
It'd be like, you try and put things in context. And
yes.
You're right. We are one of the superpowers of the world, politically, economically, militarily, whatever. It wasn't on accident. We are young. We are 200 years old.
Back to back.
In our country, in the world, when you're going against China and Europe and Russia and some of these long-standing countries that have been... Like, imagine if China all of a sudden split into 4 different countries. I mean, talk about havocs across the financial investment opportunity. And like, okay, where's Beijing? Where's Hong Kong? Where's this? Where's that? Well, early in the summer with Hong Kong and China taking back control of Hong Kong.
Going on.
That
still
was a huge.
On.
It was a big deal here for like 2 weeks and then nothing. But that's an obvious, huge deal for the Chinese residents of both Hong Kong and mainland China. And now when you think globally versus, with Japan and in terms of the Pacific Ocean and their primary Asia, that's a huge deal.
Well, it shows you the influence we have, like you said, Christian. Because that's the whole point of the kids going out into the streets, the protesters for Hong Kong, is they were carrying American flags. They're wanting to be more like Americans than protesters here in America. No, people here in our own country. You know what I mean?
Right. They're carrying the communist flag of China. They're carrying the United States flag.
It's amazing. And
and I'll tell you this, guys. I was talking to a customer today from Nigeria. It was just their 60th country birthday. I think it was yesterday, day before last. So happy birthday, Nigeria. But he was talking about our politics. And it was a grandfather who lives in Nigeria. But his kids, his grandkids live here in America, and he was talking to me about American politics like you and I, like we are today, right?
Right.
And he was very much like, we're not necessarily worried about his kids, but this is what the future I want for my kids. This is why we're going to vote this way. Obviously, you don't talk politics at work, so I didn't give him my point of view or anything like that. But you saw an African country, a grandfather from a predominant African country, worried about our politics, right?
Well, because he has family here.
Exactly.
Like there is some worry. I mean, obviously, with how it seems like how our political system is volatile right now, he has every right to be worried. With his family being over here, because whether Trump gets elected or Biden gets elected, this next election, these next 4 years, I think we're going to change a little bit.
I would agree. I think we're gonna do a lot of changing, a lot of growing pains, regardless. Yeah. And I don't think that's bad.
No, it's not. Change isn't bad necessarily.
Response to is what makes it.
You lose a focus when you start changing core values.
Right.
Right. What's the last big change we had? Civil rights movement in the 60s and Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of across the national, I mean, war in Iraq, Afghanistan, stuff like that, that was a big deal. But it looks like at the whole movement and the change into the shift of the direction of a country.
That's fair.
I think we can agree that the 60s were kind of that.
60s were huge. Yeah, early 70s.
Okay.
Yep.
So the change is good. We went in the right direction, but you maintain that core value stance that the Constitution had. Martin Luther King said it many times about, the Constitution says this, give us these rights that we want.
100%.
So I think whatever arguments, whatever discussion we have, whatever fights, it needs to start with the premise of, here is the core values of our country. Here is what we stand as Americans. Here's what we think. Where do we go from here?
We have to have that foundation. That foundation can't change, because the moment the foundation changes, the moment everything else is null and void. Right? Because once you build a house on a foundation, you cannot move the foundation without moving the house. Correct? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big thing is, I think we're seeing a lot of people challenge foundations, left and right, but challenging our foundations. We have to get back to just basics. And I think that's something, it's our responsibility. I say us, as American people, I think us three, right? I mean, us as men in this country, it's our duty to be active in politics. Now, obviously, we all don't have to go be mayor of our respective cities, but I think we do have to have some sense of knowledge, which I believe we all have a general knowledge of politics, as we've seen this discussion we've had. But I think, too, we have to make sure that as we have these discussions, that we don't fall into that minority of louder's always right, correct? And we have to make sure that we have, like, we've disagreed today. We've disagreed on the religion. We've disagreed almost every day. We disagree on something, funny or not. But we are respectful. And we're still friends after. There has to be a way that we share that type of respect and value in our community. And that's not going to be easy, but I do truly believe it's our responsibility, because if we don't protect our own values and our own foundation, how are we ever going to do it for our country?
Well, and that's where you have to get your mindset of the opposition. It's okay to ask someone and say, like, to ask a Biden supporter and say, well, how come you don't like Trump? We're flipping and say, what do you like about Biden?
I agree.
Right? I even can say that. I think one of Biden's bigger benefits, or even with Biden, but the DNC, is the discussion behind unions and worker rights.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of that might be instilled in me because I grew up in Metro Detroit. The United Auto Workers is there. The Teamsters is there. You have a very big union presence here. The unions have done a marvelous thing for a lot of workers in terms of the progression of worker rights and the protection and trying to share, trying to build in the right direction. I may not agree with it, but I've seen a lot of good. The problem, I think, with unions today is they are way too big. I think unions need to be minuscule a little bit and say, okay, this Ford plant has this union. This Ford plant has that union. And now you have, okay, the workers within this building negotiate and come up with a plan for the owners and whatever.
Now, can't you get better deals and all that if you have overarching union, though? Because you have more power, more control.
You would, but at this point in time, I mean, the unions are so big and the money is so high that I think
as
the
in
unions
to join or that they have.
That they get donated to them.
Okay.
Who they sponsor, who they endorse,
right.
Who they run the like. I think it's wrong for a union to say we support X candidate, right? Why not let and that goes the same. All right, the New York Police Department came out and I think they support Trump, right? Didn't they say that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. The UAW traditionally, they haven't made a decision yet this year, I don't think, always endorse the Democratic nominee. Why should the unions have that much say into it? And do they think the members of those unions are just going to falter into it? Now, there's propaganda, and I'm sure both sides, Republican and Democrat, are going to lobby and pander to said unions to try and get the vote as they would. But I think that's where if I was having a discussion with a Biden supporter, like, okay, you know what? I kind of agree with you. I think unions have done good. I think they have done bad. Where can we meet in the middle? Where do we think this thing can go?
But don't the unions represent the people that join them? So if they're supporting,
that now you're running into muddy waters where if you don't want to join the union, right, you can't work for said company, or you don't want to pay the union dues, so you can't work here. So you don't have those people who say, okay, I want to get hired into this Chevrolet plant.
Okay.
80% of them join the union. The other 20, like it's either 100% or nothing. It's not like you have 80% join, 20%
they can't
don't.
do that.
So you don't have. So you don't have the freedom. So you don't have the freedom not to join.
That doesn't make any sense because I have family that's in the post office and all, and one of them works in the union and all, but they have the option. And the union, the post office union, I mean, it's rather large, and they're not making people, oh, you can't go deliver mail because you don't want to pay your dues. But that's a legit. I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. But I feel like that's really crazy.
I've never been part of a union, but I would fairly say that, especially with the UAW, if you work for them, you automatically have to join the union. You have to pay your union dues. You have to be part of the union. You can't work off the line as a non-union member. I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen.
Is the UAW controlling the plant, or is Chevrolet controlling the plant?
Now you're starting to get into why I think the unions have gotten too big. Because the UAW could just say, you know what, we don't like your terms, we don't like what you do, we're going on strike, and they pull out.
But then
the UAW with Chevy pull out every Chevy UA plant, not just one, every single plant in Michigan.
Yeah, but that's happened before, and they just hire people.
Okay, yes. Now you get the scab workers, right? Okay, but it's about where the union is too big, and now you have union members, harassing scab workers, right?
Right, that's true. That is true. There's
right.
Yeah.
So it's a very, I think when the union gets that big, it's a very muddy water, and now you're dealing with an organization that is playing politics that are not in politics. Why I think you should have it more localized, or even if you did it county wise, okay, Oakland County UAW, Macomb County UAW, whatever. I think the unions can do a decent job. I think they have done a lot, but I think they need to be scaled back a little bit because they hold way too much now. The kickback in that, in terms, okay, now the union members or the people that support unions are going to ask, okay, well, the owners make billions of dollars. The owners make this much money. We do all the work, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's where the negotiation comes into play. You're like, okay, and it's a very delicate scale, right? Because I'm very much in favor of free market capitalism, and you should negotiate your salary. It shouldn't be an automatic thing. And I think a business owner or a business corporation should have the decision to make what they determine is an acceptable wage. And you can try and negotiate and do it, but I think that needs to be for each person individually. But a union will show support among the hundreds or thousands of employees in a plant, and it's just one of I don't know. I just think they've gotten way too big, especially the UAW is huge up here in Michigan, and I don't remember hearing about a union in Georgia too much when I lived down there, Dubs.
Well, I mean, there's not. If there's an automotive union, it's obviously not near as big up as like Detroit and all of that, But there is quite a big union amongst the postal workers down here, and I just thought it was interesting that a certain entity could have so much power and influence that it's like, if you don't join us, well, we're gonna make your life hell if you get a job here.
You have no idea how strong these unions are up here.
Yeah,
they hold a ton of power, and they could shut down a plant. They could shut down a plant in no problem. If they really wanted a strong arm, and we go from there.
And I think that's crazy too, because when we're talking about, like you said, platforms, right? When we're talking about, we just had basically a whole discussion on one little piece of it, right? Yeah. And I think it would be irresponsible for us not to at least hit on some of the highlights of both candidates' platforms, just to give the listeners just a very bipartisan idea of what both parties believe, right?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So I think that would be good. Just to kind of end us off, we had a really good discussion. But I think it'll be, like I said, I think it would be irresponsible for us to have this long, in-depth conversation without going over platforms. So, Kip, do you have them available?
Sort of. I mean, their platforms are huge. But I want to ask you guys,
correct,
if you had to pick three things, what would be your top three for this election? What concerns you the most, or what would you want the candidates to talk about the most?
Domestic terrorism.
Domestic terrorism, okay.
Foreign policy, obviously.
Foreign policy.
And honestly, the legalization of marijuana.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to double back to that because Michigan made it legal here. So that's going to be interesting.
That's fair.
What about you, Christian?
Foreign policy, always big on my list. I think the First Amendment rights to maybe domestic terrorism, kind of making that differential between protests and that. And also abortion. Where we go on that, I think that would be my big three.
So my big three, would be censorship over the internet.
Okay.
In terms of like what social media is able to do, algorithms, things like that.
Right. Stealing our data.
Right. So, I'm very much concerned about globalization. I do not like that. I want a candidate against that. And recently, I really think the law enforcement aspect and the defund police movement, and I guess that could tie into the domestic terrorism aspect.
And that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at both platforms, the DNC puts out a 90-page platform PDF file. The RNC has like a 70-page platform.
Yep.
Right.
We don't have the time to go through everything.
Oh, we don't. Okay. Well, I was prepared. I had a packet printed out. But totally, yeah, my bad. I'll scratch that. We'll just hit highlights. My bad.
So I've got this thing set up here. It's from the website 2020election.procon.org. No idea the website. No idea. But they have questions here. Like the first one here, should police departments be defunded, if not abolished? And they have pro-con list of Biden, Trump, Jorgensen, and Hawkins.
That's literally the website I've been looking at all day today. No lie.
Have you really?
I have it pulled up on my
phone
right now, yeah.
What? You said pro-cons? I'm looking it up now, sorry.
Yeah, procon.org.
Yeah. So, yeah, they got it down pro-con, not clearly pro and not clearly con. So they go through that. So I figured it'd be nice to kind of go through some of these questions, get our take on it, and see what some people, what they kind of say here. So let's just go with the first one. Should police departments be defunded, if not abolished? This website, according to the website, Biden says he is against that, and same with President Trump. So according to this, they both agree police departments should not be defunded.
Right, and Biden came out and said that, which was a shock to a lot of people.
Right,
he said it in the debate, didn't he?
Yeah, it's the debate. 100%.
And then he kind of went on about having psychologists and psychiatrists and
well, he wants to create a committee,
right?
Of concerned citizens and politicians and people in the police force to make decisions based on how you should police the community.
Right. So, a lot of problems there. Different parts of the country have different standards of policing.
Correct.
And the way I see it is oh crap, what's the show? Oh, it's going to come to me in a minute. But like Small Town USA have different standards than Big City New York.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Should they police the same across the board? Ideally, they cover the laws of those countries, but let's take this for example. Small Town USA, WD, you grew up in Small Town USA. You're 20 years old. You get caught drinking at a tailgate. What should the cop do? Take you to jail? Or call your dad and say, hey, come get your kid. I caught you drinking.
Depends on if you're out of towner.
Okay.
That's true. That's true. If your dad went to high school with a cop, you definitely get that call.
Let's assume
you're in town. No, you're getting the slap on the wrist. You're like, put it up, boys.
Right.
Get home.
And I think that's how it should be. I think that's where different communities will be able to say, you know what? I know who your dad is. You're not causing any trouble. Yes, you're drinking underage. Let me call your parents. They'll take care of it. Blah, blah, blah. I don't think that should be an automatic, all right, I'm putting you in handcuffs and we're going to jail.
If it was my dad, I would be sleeping in jail. I'll tell you that.
Oh, my dad would be too.
That is true.
Yeah. Yeah, he wouldn't get me till the morning. So
But to that effect, though, it's all good. It's like the saying, it's fine until you poke someone's eye out. It's fine to keep letting them off until they get behind the wheel of a car and they kill somebody.
Correct.
Right.
There's that aspect of it, too. So,
and you can have levels to it, right?
Oh, of course.
So I don't think police need to be
This is my thing, personally. I think things like murder, things like, robbery, assault, battery, all that jazz, that should be the same no matter who you are. So, where you are, who you are, what it is, it needs to be the same. Now, are there different degrees? Correct. And I think in those degrees, if I get third degree or first degree, if all three of us get first degree murder, we should all have the same jail sentencing. Right?
Doesn't that depend on your past convictions?
No. Yeah. What about your personal record?
Well, yeah, and that's fair. That's fair. And if you're putting that, there has to be some type of formula that puts that into account. Okay. But what I'm saying is, if we're all first offenders, we should all get the same sentencing. Does that make sense?
I can agree with that.
Like, I don't think there should be any money lines. Now, go ahead, sorry.
And that's where a lot of people want to say there's two justice systems, one for white, one for black. Mm-hmm. I think it's well documented that, and I could be wrong, but black people get put in jail for longer sentences for like marijuana or drug charges compared to white people.
Yes.
I think that's a true statement, and it should not be a true statement.
It should not.
If it's a nonviolent crime, such as drugs, and this is the definitely the Democrat conversation, the decriminalization of drugs or nonviolent crimes, I think, should be in the forefront for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I don't think it does anybody good to sit in jail for a drug charge.
Right? Community service. You guys still teach them a lesson for doing something illegal.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah, community service, or if you had some type of program in terms of substance abuse.
That's what I was going to say. Or at least put them in a program, help them out.
There's something. I don't think jail's the answer because it's expensive to house an inmate. It's a lot of money.
Gosh.
Well, then you got to start talking about privatizing prisons then.
Yes, that's another thing. I think the deprivatization of a jail needs to be done as well. Why should a jail be for profit? I mean, I think that's a problem.
That's the reason for rise in prisons.
I had a patient bring up an interesting point about which he goes, I know how we can clean up the judicial system, clean out the jails. He goes, you put people under house arrest for a lot more. He goes, people are going nuts sitting in their houses for 2 months. Mm-hmm. Now imagine if they did, busted for selling drugs, whatever, and they got to stay on house arrest for 4 months. They can't leave their house. They can't leave their yard. People may think twice instead of just being able to walk off the street, pay a bail, whatever, and have their quote unquote freedom back.
Why are you against privatized prisons? What's your main reason?
The wardens of said prisons could make it very easy to keep people there longer to make more money.
Okay.
So Shawshank Redemption. The warden was fixing on the right. It makes no sense. A prison is a societal thing. It's a community aspect.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's going to be funded. So
if you have private prisons that are being ran by an individual or a company, to me, it would deter me from doing something illegal if I knew my butt was about to go to that specific jail. Because I'm like, man, the punishments they give out there, man, the life I'm going to have there is going to be crap. But if I go to the state-run one, I can get meals all the time. I can just whatever. That's my viewpoint on it. I don't mind. Honestly, I don't mind the privatized prison in that form. That honestly, I don't.
That's an interesting point that I never thought of.
Because to me, it would deter me from wanting to do something if I knew that. How they their rules is I got to be out there breaking rocks. I got to be out there doing this and that and all. Like, no, I don't want to be.
Well, now you're talking about human rights breaks and civil rights issues. But I think it would be in the better interest of society as a whole to have non-privatized prisons that house the violent offenders primarily. Now, if you get caught, drug abuse, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, I think there needs to be bigger consequences and jail time is appropriate. But man, so many people in jail for pot charges just seem unreal, right? I just don't get it. I don't. If you want to go home and smoke, do you smoke a bong or you hit a bong? You hit a bong. You don't smoke a bong, right? If you want to get high, if you want to shoot up LSD, if you want to cook meth, well, maybe not cook meth, but if you want to do stuff in your house, I don't have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is
illegal, though. That's my issue.
We're talking about decriminalizing.
Okay.
We're talking about decriminalizing those activities. Yeah, it's illegal now, but if you made it to where, you know what, if you want to do crack in your house, okay, don't get caught in public. Don't get caught with a DUI. And that's what Michigan has done with
No, nah.
Well,
like let's just say marijuana, for instance. That's okay. One thing that will get decriminalized nationwide soon. I really believe that.
Yes,
and I think, and I think that it's right now. I think Georgia, or maybe it's up to each individual jurisdiction. I think it has been decriminalized to a certain extent, where you're getting a ticket instead of jail time.
Yeah.
I think that's a good course of action for something like that, if it's still illegal in that state or that jurisdiction. But my whole thing is, no matter what the law is, no matter what it is, if you know what you're doing is illegal, you have to understand what the repercussions of your actions are.
Yes.
So if it's illegal to smoke pot and you get busted smoking pot, well, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have did.
No, you're right. No, you're right.
I would agree.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with speeding. I mean, everybody speeds, but it's my lucky day. I get caught.
Yeah,
it's my
I
lucky
get the
day.
good
I get
cop
caught.
this time around. Yeah.
So I don't know.
No.
I just have an issue with that. It's like, if something's illegal, just don't do it.
You're right. I mean, that's the easy argument, though. I mean, like you said, you get caught. If you use your speeding example. You get caught from the one bad cop, right? That you got stuck on. All of a sudden,
it's a bad cop that pulled me over for breaking the law.
Maybe it's okay.
Boom.
No, but good cop versus bad cop in terms of, I'm only going to write you for going 5 over instead of 15 over.
Okay.
I'm only going to write you for speeding. I mean,
wait. So this is my thing. If I go 15 over, it is 100% fair for me to get a 15 over speeding ticket. And
yes.
But that doesn't make them a bad cop for doing that. Now, does it make what?
But this is where the judicial, the two-party system. You're a white guy. You get pulled over going 15 over. You get a ticket for going 5 over. A black guy gets pulled over. He's going 15 over. What if that cop doesn't like black guys and he gets a ticket for 15 over?
Yeah.
Right. That's the argument people are having, and I think it's a valid argument. Why it should be? You went 15 over. He went 15 over. You both got a ticket for 15.
I mean, me and my brother. My brother's black. I've been pulled over for DWB before. I mean, really.
You're an idiot.
Really. It's a real thing.
Just you saying that, I think I just was making a joke.
That's fair. I'm super white, but my brother's black. But honestly, been driving, was in our cousin's neighborhood that happened to be uppity, and a cop pulled us over and was just like, "Why are you here? Why is that your business?" Right? And like, we went through that discussion. Mm-hmm. Why are you pulling me over? So it does happen.
Yeah,
he said he the reason why he said was, "Why are you here? Do you live in here?" No. All right. Well, then you're probably trespassing. I was like, "Why? I'm going to my cousin's house. That's not trespassing." And he kept arguing with us for like 20 minutes.
It was a police officer, not a security plate.
Yeah, it was a police officer. Yeah, it was a police officer that drove. But yeah, it was a police officer. I had to call my aunt to come through. And
wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal. But it's happened.
I think you can't just assume someone is gonna make a decision based on race, though. At the same time,
that's fair.
No, but
there are
that's tough for me though. That's tough.
There are bad cops out there. I completely agree with that.
Yeah,
110%. But the bad cops do not outweigh the good cops as well.
Right.
There are more good.
I would agree 100%.
Than there are bad, and it's unfortunate that
I agree.
The bad police officers, they get the most media time, they get the most screen time, you don't hear about the good things police officers do, saving people, saving babies, saving lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's unfortunate that you just don't hear that.
It is. All right. Well,
we'll move on to another one.
Yeah.
So this one is more on domestic policy. Again, I'm just picking it by random.
That's fair.
Should the federal government provide universal child care? Biden says no. Trump says no. Jorgensen says no. Hawkins says yes.
I thought that was interesting. I thought that was.
Do we need to talk about Hawkins?
No.
I don't think we need to talk about it. Okay.
No.
So they all agree the government should not provide universal child care.
No.
And I agree with each one of them.
No.
So should they provide universal health care? Because why can't you tie that into the same thing?
No.
You could, yeah. Nah.
Universal nothing is a bad thing in my opinion.
I agree. I completely agree with you as well. I just thought it was interesting that all the candidates, the major ones, if you want to include JoJo in there.
Yeah.
You know?
JoJo.
Yeah, all went against it, which is quite interesting.
It is interesting. Against the norm of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Which Biden's doing that in some of his things, which is interesting. It's just an interesting view.
Let's go to the next one real quick on the economy. Should the U.S. economy be shut down again during the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic if recommended by scientists? Biden says yes. Trump says no.
No.
Yeah, I'm totally with Trump on this side.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
If you believe in capitalism.
if you believe in statistics, if you believe in other stuff, you didn't have this response with Zika and Ebola and everything else. And people are going to say, well, Corona is more spreadable and it's easier to... I don't care. That's not how we work. We're not that kind of country.
The cases have not reached the amount of cases swine flu has, and the death rate has not been as high as the swine flu has.
Right. So,
or the amount of deaths, not the rate, the amount of deaths.
I think and I think Trump did a smart thing of making this a state issue. Your state knows what's best for you. You make a decision. I'm in Michigan. Governor Whitmer made a very bold decision. The Sunday before St. Patrick's Day, pissed everybody off who wanted to go to the bars on St. Patrick's Day. We're shutting everything down. And as you made the excuse, we're shutting down for 2 weeks because we can't override the system. 95% of the people said, cool, no problem. We get it. We understand it.
Yeah.
That was March 15th. It is now October 2nd.
It's a long 2 weeks, huh?
Yeah, it is October 2nd, and she just lost a court case in the Supreme Court of Michigan that her executive orders were unconstitutional, and now we have that funding to look forward to. So, no, I don't care what the problem is. I don't care if it's an illness, if it's a virus, if it's bacteria. You don't shut it down. I don't think you have the right to shut things down for this extended period of time. In very acute and small instances, I can understand an argument if you can make a solid argument to it. But I'm very glad Trump said, we're not shutting things down. We'll close the borders. We'll do this. We'll do that. I'll do everything I can to get supplies. And he moved those ships from one side to the other. I think everything that a lot of governors and the Trump did in terms of preparing for the pandemic has done really well. But shutting things down, I totally disagree with.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
I think that's fair. Can I do the next one?
Sure.
Go to education, because I'm a teacher and I'm a genius, but mostly a teacher. Go to we're talking about for-profit charter schools.
What number?
Lexington for-profit. I'll tell you what. What number is what?
What number are you talking about? 25?
I think that's what it is.
On this website?
Mine doesn't come up with numbers. It just says the things.
Okay.
But for-profit. Everybody but Trump says no to for-profit charter schools. And I got to admit, I'm a no on that one. I disagree with Trump. Granted, Trump's kind of, if you read Trump's insert there, he's getting rid of federal funding for charter schools and making it a state decision. So I would kind of put him as a maybe.
So
more than a yes.
If you can clarify me,
yeah,
charter schools are like private schools that have received federal funding.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of basic definition, I agree with you. I agree with Biden. If you are a private school, you should not receive federal funding.
I would agree. You're already receiving private funding.
Right. You're getting private funding. You're getting private scholarships, private grants, whatever it is. The federal fund should go to the true quote unquote public school.
I agree. If it's a public school, you get federal funding. If you choose to open a privatized educational system, it is up to you personally to keep it going.
Yes.
Because the states or the federal option is already provided to those students. So if you go over and beyond what's already provided, it's up to you to keep that provision, if that makes sense. That's just my belief. And I've taught in private schools and I've taught in public schools. And guys, let me tell you, as a teacher, if you're working at a private school, I'm sorry. Public schools are a lot better.
Well, better how? As the employee?
Better for the employee.
Okay, not as necessarily for the student.
No, I'll tell you what. I think, honestly, this is... I think either way you're getting a good education, but either way it depends on the teacher.
Yeah, I want to challenge you on that.
It's okay, you're wrong, but that's fine.
No, you want to? Okay, fine. No, you want to go down this road?
Fine. We can debate education later.
Fine. Okay, we'll say that for later.
Okay.
What's next? Do you want to do one, or you want me to keep going down the list?
No, you're doing good, buddy.
Okay.
Okay, so here's one that both Biden and Trump have a question mark next to. Should Election Day be a national holiday?
Should what? Should
Election Day be a national holiday?
I mean, your employer is already, they cannot hold it against you not to go to vote. They have
they're
to
supposed to give you
you
time
off.
to vote.
Well, my job, we open late that day so you can go vote.
Right. So it doesn't need to be a holiday. People are already making it easy for you. I mean, it's not. I mean, you have Georgia. The weekends leading up to the election, you can go vote. You can actually go and vote. But why are you waiting to the last minute to go vote if it's going to be an issue and you're going to have a problem with it?
I would agree.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be a holiday.
I have no problem them making it a national holiday.
And who wants it to be a national holiday?
Nobody. It's a question mark on both candidates.
Okay, that makes sense. I would see that more as
the only one who is pro that is Hawkins of the Green Party. Biden or Trump have a question mark. I'm in favor of it. I have no issue because when you do, that leaves no excuses for anybody.
That's fair.
You have the day off of work. The polls should be open from 7 in the morning until 9 at night. Whatever, you can do what you got to do. So I'm in favor of it.
So you need to shut down banks. You need to shut down the post office. You need to do all that for that.
I'll tell you what. I'd much rather have Election Day be a national holiday over Columbus Day.
I would agree with that.
What if you flip one of them? What if you say? What if you just flip? Okay, Columbus Day is no longer a national holiday. Election Day is.
I would be upset.
Because you get that Monday off of work.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
What if it was Indigenous People Day instead of Columbus Day? Because you could flip the script like that because that's what they're going to make it anyway. And that's a whole other thing, I know.
That's fair.
But if it is that, because that's what some states have already done.
Right. But I would have no problem making it a national holiday. I think it's a fair thing to do.
Well, I think this is where we all sit. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to ruin. It's not going to ruin my day for me not to go to work.
Right. So, So here's another one. Should former felons be allowed to vote? Biden says yes. Trump has an NC, which I believe is non-committed. I want to say what's the NC here?
Non-con, isn't it?
Yeah, not clearly pro, not clearly con. So he doesn't really say. Personally, for me, if you're a former felon, you paid your debt to society through your prison sentence, through your wages, whatever you got to do. I think you should gain your right to vote back.
I agree.
I think it depends on the severity of the crime committed.
Well, if the severity is that high enough,
you're not going to get out. You're not going to get out.
Right. If it's a triple homicide, you're not going to be able to get out.
If you have a chance for parole and you do get out, that person should not have any rights to vote in an election.
Well, this is the thing. I think. If you're on parole, no, but if you're
not clear and free yet,
right?
What?
If you're on parole, you're not clear and free yet. I'm talking if you paid your debt, you're clear and free.
Okay.
Right.
Everything's done and over with. I think you should gain your.
That's where I was at too. Yeah. No, if you're on parole, you're on parole. Like, nah, sorry.
Yeah. Interesting one. Yeah, we won't touch that topic. We'll save that for a different day.
Touch it.
No, we'll save it for a different day.
What'd you say?
We'll save it for a different day. Fine. You want to go a week? Fine.
Weak sauce.
If you want to call me out like that, should schools be gun-free zones? Come on, teacher, you're first. Biden says yes, they should be gun-free zones. Trump says no. For reference, Joe Jorgensen says no as well.
Mm-hmm. What do y'all think? I'll comment last.
No, you're the teacher. Go for it.
Gun-free zone, I think it's most definitely smart to have somebody there that is available and knowledgeable to use a weapon if need be in an emergency. I do. Now, rather that's a teacher or a resource officer, the problem with resource officers is there's only one for an entire campus. Does that make sense? So you hear the argument for, have certain teachers, as an emergency, have that. And I think that's fair. I think the biggest problem isn't necessarily having teachers certified, can still carry all that. I don't think that's the big thing. The problem is where are you going to put that firearm during the day? Does that make sense?
On their belt.
That's what they say. Conceal it on themselves.
Yes.
It would go nowhere else except on their body.
Well, that's fair. You could do that. But, again, if it's concealed carry, cool. I think that's where you get the biggest argument, the biggest pushback is where you put that firearm. But me personally, I would be comfortable doing that as a teacher, having my concealed carry license and doing that. I think there are a lot of teachers that I've had conversations with that I've been to the gun range with who I'd be like, yeah, give that girl a gun. I've been like, don't throw me the gun, throw her the gun, But I understand that school's a scary place, and I hate that we even have to have this discussion. It's stressful as an educator to keep your kids safe. Stressful to hear all the statistics and all that. But I will say, I would most definitely feel better if I knew somebody on campus was available to protect us at all times, and you don't necessarily get that with just one resource officer throughout the day.
You have thousands of U.S. veterans wanting work.
There it is.
You put 2 or 3 of them in a school. They know how to use a weapon. They are trained. They know what they need to do. I don't think you need to give teachers guns. I don't think you need to give the principal. I think you need to have a true security office personnel to handle an emergency situation like that.
My question is, could you make that federal? Could you make that a federal education security force, right? And you get an option when you.
I don't think you would have to.
You don't think so?
I don't think you.
What would you want to?
No. I think you're right.
You know what I mean?
I think your idea is better. I think your idea is better where you could say, okay, you're Army Reserve, you're a Marine, you're a SEAL, you're this. When you get out of the armed forces, you could say, I want to try and apply for this program.
Right, and that's what
school security personnel, whatever.
Right.
It's not a bad idea.
No.
I mean, I think that's a conversation.
You can get paid this, what, 50,000.
Well, who cares what they
That's
get
fair.
paid for? That's a discussion for a different.
That's fair.
They can figure that out, but what better way than
2 birds with one stone, right?
Right, you're employing a veteran. You're giving them a purpose. They're not coming back from active duty into a civilian lifestyle, trying to figure the world out or go back to a civilian job.
Right.
Right. I think there's a lot of good that can come out of that.
I would agree, and you could see that. I like that better than me having to hold the gun. I mean, I would be comfortable, but I think it.
I don't think you need to, because I think what the teachers need to do. Again, you talk about a scary space and whatever.
I wish I could just focus on teaching.
There's so many things you could do to prevent. I think, they got the door locks.
Yeah.
They're making it impossible. Those should be installed across the board.
Yeah.
Right. I have no problem with metal detectors. Mm-hmm. Okay, you got to walk through a metal detector, whatever.
No big deal.
I got no issue with that. We got to if I got to go to a baseball game and go through a metal detector, I don't see a problem with school. Okay, I don't think teachers need to be on, but those are the safety mechanisms you can do. And now the bell rings. You got a bunch of kids walking around the halls. That's when the veterans are out there. They're posted up and they're watching. They know what to look for. They know the signs. I think it's a very advantageous avenue to approach.
Most definitely something. If someone said they would look into it, I most definitely support.
Yeah. Dubs, thoughts on it? Anything?
I mean, I completely agree with what you said. I was going to bring up, we have the veterans that are looking for jobs when they come back from tours. And, as long as they pass, certain qualifications, you can't just, it's unfortunate this happens. You just can't give any veteran
I agree.
Right. Well,
that
I think
responsibility.
But I think that's assumed too, Kip. Right? I mean,
right. Well, and I think that's I like the idea of where you're going to go to this federal program after, your active duty.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Right. I like that idea.
Yeah. Debrief and all that. Yeah.
So let's move on here. Going to a little bit more foreign policy because all of us are really ingrained in foreign policy. Should the U.S. withdraw troops from the Middle East? Biden says yes. Trump says yes. Jorgensen says yes. Hawkins says yes. They all say yes.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen. But
no.
I agree with them. They should get them out. Let them deal with their own thing. I hate having troops. I know there's troops stationed to protect United States interests, to figure out security and intelligence. As far as boots on the ground, active military operations, let them fend for themselves.
I do think it's our job as the quote unquote most powerful nation in the world, the best military. I'm saying that in quotes, Mr. Christian.
Okay, thanks.
I think it is our job, not necessarily police people, but I think if a country requests help, I think that we have that right. That as just to help, to help protect a human being, and it doesn't have to be obviously somebody from America or anything like that. But if a country in the Middle East and wherever, it doesn't matter, if they're like, hey, we could really use some help over here, we're being attacked, this is what's going on, I don't see the issue with that, as long as that's the reason we're over there. Now, we're just sending people over there because of our own, our own will and for profit reasons, whatever. I have an issue with that.
I would agree. And I think that, like you said, you need help. What do you need help with exactly? Let's set some guidelines. What are we headed to? What's the goal?
Sure.
We met that goal. Cool. Now it's up to you to keep that. You can't just keep, we can't just keep policing everybody else, right? Like, I'm gonna get you to a standard of security, of safety, of stability. Your job's to keep it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where we have to do.
So let's streamline some of these next few ones because I like a few.
Healthcare
is an obvious big deal for a lot of people. It's no secret that Trump is against a lot of the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
Biden is for it. But let's try and get a little bit more specifics here. The question: should Americans be able to import prescription drugs? All four candidates say yes.
Yes.
Huh.
I agree too.
That's interesting because they brought that up in the debate, and I don't remember Biden necessarily saying yes or no to that. I know Trump said he's definitely going to allow states to get foreign medicines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's the next big one. Should the U.S. switch to a Medicare for all system? Trump, no. Jorgensen, no. Biden, no.
Mm.
Biden is
so.
not
It's
for
so
the
interesting
Medicare.
that he's going against the far left.
So now you have against the Green New Deal and now against universal health care.
I think it's smart though. I'll tell you why.
He's going to get more. He's going to get more Democratic votes.
I think him going against the far left. He already has the far left. Kamala Harris, Kamala. Sorry, I pronounce it wrong every time. But she already has the left. He doesn't need to pander to them. What he needs to do is get those 5% in the middle. So if he gets as Republican as he can to get that 5% over there, she'll take care of the left.
Yeah.
So I think it's smart. But sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. We're just going to fly through a few more of these.
Yeah, you're good.
Immigration. Should the U.S. decriminalize illegal border crossings? Jorgensen, yes. Hawkins, yes. Trump and Biden, no. Here's another one.
You-
Biden going against the far left.
You want to know something as a Mexican American? What I think?
You're white.
I'm Mexican.
Sure. Go ahead.
I think you still need to criminalize it.
I do too.
And this is the thing.
There are actions for crossing into a country. I can't cross into Canada. I can't go cross into.
Granted, who wants to cross into Canada in the first place, though? So I mean,
hey man, drinking age 19 over there.
That's fair.
I think that's a good idea. I mean that obviously negates the idea of talking about the legal citizenship path, but that's a different discussion.
I very much think that the test for legalization of a citizen needs to be simplified.
Oh yeah, the whole process needs to be simplified.
This is my thing. So we had to at one point in one of our foreign policy classes had to take the test that they take to be a citizen. I scraped by with and I'm a history major, and there were a lot of things you were like, wait, I don't remember this, because you don't talk about it every day. Like, there's things that they talk about, certain rights. Like, we don't talk about the amendments every single day of every single history class. So a few times you're like, what's this amendment? And you're thinking, is it that one? Or is it, you know what I mean? You go through that channel of thought. It's difficult. And I think that test needs to be simplified, because me as a person who has a degree in history, if I'm scraping by, granted it was a little earlier in my career, I was like a junior at the point. I took 5 years because I took a victory lap because I'm a genius. But I think that was sarcasm, by the way. What I think though, we need to simplify. We need to make it a lot easier. I think if we still are strict on the safety precautions on who we let in, but we make it easier for those who are genuinely trying to look for a better life, it'll cut down some of that illegal crossing.
Yes, I agree. All right, let's do one more here. What do you guys want? Do you want a healthcare or foreign policy? You got anything you want? Environment? What do you want?
Hit me with your best shot.
Hit me with your
Fire
best
away.
shot. Mm-hmm. We talked about that one. Okay, we'll do this just now because you guys are both from the South, and I think this will get Christian enough tizzy right now. Should Confederate statues be taken down?
I saw that one.
Should Biden says yes. Trump says now he is against. Jorgensen says yes. Hawkins has no idea. So, Mr. History, you got a degree in 5 years. Let me hear your thoughts, please. This will be our last topic, and we'll call it a day.
Yes, Tizzy is like
guy. I know you can't see Christian, but he's leaned back in his chair, his arms up over his head. He's about ready to punch the computer.
My God.
Go ahead, sir.
So, as you have triggered me, as they say, I play devil's advocate. I think both sides, right? I think a lot of the Confederate. I think it depends on the why of the Confederate monument, correct? I think if you put it up to remember your ancestor, remember what was happening, memorialize that's fine. I think if you're trying to memorialize slavery, right, trying to memorialize those type of aspects, the negative aspects of the Confederacy, should it be taken down? Not necessarily. Can you change the meaning of it? Can you maybe exchange it? I mean, yeah, I said still take it down, but, change it. I just don't think you can sit there and blank slate. If it's a Confederate monument, it's over with. Does that make sense? You can't do that because I completely understand of course I'm not African American, but as an African American culture, that's a reminder every day that, hey, your people were slaves, right? Like, I understand that background, but still it's a part of history. Now, is the exact statue that was put up in the 70s part of Civil War? Of course not, right? But at the same time, what are we trying to convey with the memorialization of that act in the Civil War? That's the big thing, is are we actually caring about the people or the person that fought in the war? Or are we talking more ideals that were actually fought for, if that makes sense? What are we memorializing in that?
You want people to critically think?
That's fair. I guess so.
I think it's showing how far we've come since then. If you look at Germany, for example, they have concentration camps. Why haven't they bulldozed those down, right? Terrible tragedy. terrible tragedy. If you listen to one of our previous podcasts, it's insane that millennials and Gen Zers don't know what the hell a concentration camp is. But those are still up. That's being taught. Because you can't just delete the past. You have to learn from it.
I agree. Yes.
And people learn visually. They learn from storytelling. Mm-hmm. That's how people learn. And my viewpoint is, if I go, and obviously Confederate statues down here are really prevalent. If I go and I want to tour and see what happened back then, because those monuments tell a story as well.
They do.
And I can see, like, okay, this general that's on top of this horse, this is what he did. Mm-hmm. How did he kind of shape things?
What gets lost in the statue argument is the context of the time period of the person that was involved. Mm-hmm. If you go, like, let's just use the Robert E. Lee. He played a very important role for the South. Why should his statues be taken down? Right?
I personally don't think they should be, but
well, and that's the argument, though. Like, okay,
he was a Confederate,
at the time, he was a very important figure in society. Could you say the same? You always try and take it to the extremes. If there's a statue of Hitler out there, mm-hmm. Okay, for 5-6 years, he was a very important figure in Germany. Mm-hmm. Now, there is a very big, long list of why he should not have a statue, just like Kim Jong-un in North Korea. But it's still that history piece, and that's a good, you bring the good example of the concentration camp. So the context of the time and the time period should be really relevant in the discussion of removing a statue or not. I don't know. Up here in the north, we don't have I don't see statues of Lincoln. I don't see statues of these northern people. So I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent. I don't think statues should be taken down because I think it's in poor taste to even remove a statue in the first place. Well, considering some of the circumstances around it, and I want to bring who's the guy, the coach from Penn State that got caught up in the whole molestation? What was his name?
Yeah, starts with an S. Last name starts with S.
Well, everyone will know what I'm talking about.
Right.
He had a statue. They removed the statue.
Right.
I think that was appropriate. That was very recent. So, that I find appropriate. But to remove some of these statues that have been there for 100 years, 150 years, I don't understand it.
Petrino. Is that who you're talking about?
Petrino.
Well, Petrino was the head coach. It was his assistant that did all the touchy-feely stuff.
Right.
Sandusky, that's right. I personally think that if Germany had, and I don't know if they actually do, I'm sure there's probably somewhere in Germany that there's a statue of Hitler. I bet there is somewhere.
Let's Google.
I honestly would not have a problem if that statue stayed. And I know, and let me, you're giving me a stink eye, but let me explain.
Okay.
To me, I'm not a history, I don't have a history degree, all that, but I'm very interested in things that happen in history. And I'm interested in big events that have happened in history. Obviously, what went with Hitler in Germany, that was a huge event, shaped a bunch of different things throughout the world. I think seeing a person's statue that you can look at and be like, how can that person do something, be so great at that time, like Kip said, for like 5 or 6 years, but then just once we really learn what he was doing and the intent behind all of it, it's kind of amazing that someone could even be like that.
Yeah.
Right? And the statue's not there glorifying him or anything. It's a informative piece of stone or bronze, whatever you wanna make it out of. That's my viewpoint, and that goes here to the Confederates as well. It's a learning tool. It's a piece of history. I mean,
yeah, I agree. Like I said, I don't see the point in removing a lot of statues or a lot of war monuments or things that have been around for a millennium or hundreds of years. I don't understand it. I think it's a way for people to have an anger outlet that's not productive. But in any event, guys, I think we're losing some steam here. We've been doing this for a couple hours now. This is obviously one of the longer
for sure
pods we've done. But I like it though. We had a good talk.
We did.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lively discussion. I like that. It's gonna be more of an unedited, uncut piece. And I hope whoever's listening, I hope they enjoy this type. This won't be the norm for podcasts because people's attention spans don't usually last.
We don't plan on doing 2-hour shows that long.
Exactly. No, but I think when you've had a week like we've had in the United States, and there's a bunch of topics we could hit on, I think it's fun to really dive into that and see what little rabbit trails we get on and all.
Right.
Yeah, because people have these kind of discussions every day, whether it be with their spouse or at work or with a friend. We need more conversation like this.
Right.
I don't think either one of us were nasty to each other. We weren't. I really don't think we were biased much. I think we discussed pros and cons of each candidates. I thought it was a good discussion all the way around, boys.
Yeah, I think it was good. Christian 2020, but besides that,
you don't got my vote.
Wow.
I'll write you in. I'll write you in.
That's fair. I'll
write you in.
I wish. Honestly, I wouldn't mind. I think it'd be a pretty sweet gig, but I got 9 years before I can do it.
So I'm gonna end the show with a little dub nugget that we have every show, and this one does kind of has to do with our show today.
Nice.
So you guys, do you know why the Democrats use the donkey as their?
I can tell you why, but it's
I can make jokes, but no. No, tell me.
Christian may know this since he is the history guy. I didn't even think about this when I found this piece of information, but they used the donkey as their mascot thanks to Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was, by his critics, was called the jackass quite often.
Yeah, he was
because of his populist views, and so he just embraced the image of being a jackass, and he used it alongside his slogan, which is "Let the people rule." So, yeah, so that was pretty interesting. Yeah. I didn't realize that
because I love it because the joke you would make, like, because they're jackasses, like yes, they are jackasses, like that's it. Well, yeah, man. I think that was good. Good job, guys. Well, hey, guy. All right, I'll do that later.
Chris is screwed up again, guys. Keep this unedited. Don't cut it out.
No.
He doesn't know what to say. I'll close this out. Thanks for listening to episode 8 of The Confused Gentleman. We talked politics today. It was a very good discussion, and I'm taking over the show because Christian can't know how to open or close the show. You'll have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Peace. Peace.